I'm Sean Shapiro. I'm a police officer with the Toronto Police Service, and we're members of the IDCC. That's the Impaired Driving Coalition of Canada. I had a chance to speak to some other members, and they shared with me not only why their agencies are members of the IDCC, but myths they wanted to bust. Stay tuned and listen to them now. I am now joined by Mike Millian. He is the president of the Private Motor Truck Council of Canada. Welcome back. I say welcome back because we've actually done this before. We were on a podcast together for TPS Traffic Jam.
Yes, we were. How are you today, Sean?
I'm awesome, and it's good to see you again. Now, of course, I know what you do, but for those who don't, can you tell me what the PMTC is?
Yeah, so we're a not-for-profit membership-based association whose main members are private and dedicated trucking fleets.
This conversation really ties in with your organization, and you, of course, are a member of the IDCC. And yes. What I'd like to know, this hard-hitting question, how is impaired driving? How does it impact your organization, your membership? You know, what does it mean to you?
Yeah, well, and I mean, from our end, our members have all sorts of businesses that have to do with other than the roadside. But the reason that they join our organization is we represent their transportation side of things. Basically, they join us to help them promote safety, best practices in their fleet. Training, all those sorts of things. And their members are out on the road for a significant period of time. You think of a truck driver's day, a professional truck operator, man or woman, they are out on the highways doing their job. And how people operate on those highways obviously affects the safety of their day and how their day goes. So it's very important to them. That is their workplace.
So as an organization that helps educate its members and in safety on the roads, why does the PMTC join the IDCC? And that's a lot of letters.
It's important that a truck driver understands the risks of getting into a vehicle if they are impaired by any way, just as much as it's important that the people that they're sharing the road with understand it. So we want to help educate our members and help our members educate their drivers. We also want to help them understand the consequences of it. We also want to make them understand that if you don't follow these rules, these are what the possible penalties could be. So it's all about education and awareness.
Awesome. That's really that's exactly it for me too. Except for the trucking part.
Yeah.
Now, the IDCC, which is the Impaired Driving Coalition of Canada, has an action plan, and there's all sorts of there's different sections of it. But what speaks to you from what you've seen in that action plan? What speaks to you the most?
I'd say two things. One is to help raise the awareness about the issue that it is. And from the awareness standpoint, I mean, what we're seeing is, and maybe this is a thing with my age group and not so much the younger age group, but a lot of people, when they think about impaired, they still have this focus about alcohol. And there's a lot more to do with impaired driving than just alcohol. And we are seeing that drugs is becoming other drugs. I shouldn't say drugs because alcohol is a drug. But other drugs, marijuana being legalized, a lot more people are using marijuana now, and there seems to be this misunderstanding that driving impaired on alcohol, well, that's bad, but driving if I've had a couple hits of marijuana, joint, whatever, that's okay. It's not as bad. Well, it's not okay. It's impairing you, and there's this. I don't know, this feeling that I think part of the feeling is they think they can't get caught as easy, but you can still get caught. And whether you get caught or not, you are still endangering yourself and other road users. If I can pick on two here, it would also be enforcement. I think enforcement is very important in figuring out ways to best enforce people from two ends. Catching them once they've hit the road. Obviously, we want to be able to do that too. What we'd like to be able to figure out is ways to enforce it where we can catch them before they hit the road. So prevent them from getting on the public roadway in the first place while they're impaired. Like from a commercial vehicle standpoint, it'd be great if we could enforce it from a company standpoint.
Sure.
Where we find out they're impaired before they hit the road. Because after they hit the road, it might be too late.
So utilizing technology and introducing that into the workplace to prevent this from ever happening. Because yeah, once they're on the road, they're putting everyone at risk. I like that idea, and I'm all about education and enforcement. That's my thing.
Yeah.
So this brings me into another question. There are so many myths surrounding impaired operation. What's one that you would, if you could only pick one, or if it's the most important one on the list, to get right, to set the table straight and let people know what the facts are? What would it be?
As hard as it is to believe, I think the fact that still the only thing that sobers you up is time, and the recognition of how much time.
You really bring up a good point. So many people think that if you drink coffee, you're okay. If you drive with the window open, you're okay. If you sing, you're okay. And at the end of the day, you're right. Time is the only thing. And that's a huge myth.
Keep in mind, as a truck driver, it's zero tolerance. You're supposed to have zero alcohol in your system.
Sure.
But if you have 12 beer and go to bed and get up 8 hours later, if you get pulled over in the truck, you'll probably blow over. And if you don't blow over, you'll certainly blow over the 72-hour warning limit. And I don't think a lot of people still understand that.
Sure. It's not one bathroom break and it's all gone.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, you said, okay, if you go for, go get some fresh air, have a shower, do this, do that. Okay, it may help you feel a little bit more alert than you were before, but you're still just as impaired. The impairment didn't go away. You just don't feel as groggy as you did before you took it, but you're still groggy.
Well, that is fantastic, because it's great conversations like this that help spread awareness, that draw attention to the important facts, and the work that we're doing with the IDCC is good work. So I thank you for coming to spend time with me today and having this short chat about impaired operation, about what we're doing with the IDCC, and I look forward to future conversations and maybe future podcasts.
I thank you for having me again, and I thank you for what you're doing to raise awareness to this.
It's my pleasure. I'm now joined by CJ Hélie. He's the president of Beer Canada, and we've got some things to talk about. But first, let's talk about what is Beer Canada.
So Beer Canada is the only national inclusive trade association representing Canadian brewers of all sizes and regions and beer consumers. So we advocate on behalf of the brewing industry with the federal, provincial, and municipal governments to make sure their policies are attuned to the needs of the society.
And we're talking about impaired driving. So how does impaired driving impact your organization, and why is it a priority?
Impaired driving, of course, is a critical issue for all of society. But for those of us who are privileged enough to work in the beverage alcohol sector, we feel that we have to do everything we can to mitigate all the risks associated with the improper use of our products, and that certainly includes impaired driving. I think we've made a lot of progress over the years in educating and reducing the number of incidents. There's always more work to do. There's a new cohort of drivers every year that needs to be educated, and we have to remind older drivers like myself about don't backslide. We need to continue to make progress. And we also have a whole bunch of new types of vehicles on the roads as well. So there's always tweaking of the message to make sure that it remains front and center, that everybody recognizes you don't drink and drive, ever.
You know, your first answer to the first discussion question, it really covers a lot, but why is Beer Canada part of the IDCC?
We have found that coalitions work so much better than individual organizations or associations alone. So the IDCC is really unique in the breadth, in the diversity of the experience and expertise that they bring to the table. So we're just thrilled to be part of that and bring, a little bit of our perspective to that broader discussion.
That's amazing. The IDCC has an action plan. Is there a part of that plan that you think is particularly important?
Well, we are in the beer business, so we know how to communicate and talk to our consumers. And I think that's where we can really add value. And I think it's really critical to find new ways and interesting ways to engage with drivers and pedestrians and bicyclists about the risks on the roads and how to protect themselves and others from adverse effects.
There are so many facts and myths about impaired operation that people just get wrong, and that's something that we deal with all the time on Ask a Traffic Cop. Is there a group or some facts and myths that really stand out as needing more attention from your perspective?
I think the biggest myth is that maybe impaired driving is only about alcohol and only about cars. Impairment can come in many forms and fashion, whether it's substance abuse, fatigue, or other elements, and of course a whole bunch of different kind of vehicles as well. It's not just cars, e-bikes, e-scooters now, even boats and snowmobiles.
Yeah, it really is a bigger conversation, and it's important to consider and discuss all of it. Thank you so much for spending time with us, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Sean, thank you very much. Really appreciate the time.
And now I'm joined by Ariel Simms. She's a traffic safety coordinator for the Saskatchewan Government Insurance, SGI. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining me. It's always nice to have visitors.
Nice. Yeah, I'm excited. It's nice to meet you too.
Well, we are talking about the IDCC, and in that, the Impaired Driving Coalition of Canada. There's lots to talk about, but I want to focus on a couple of things. So mainly for SGI, how does impaired driving impact your organization, and why is it a priority for you?
So really at SGI, we have a traffic safety area, but also the organization as a whole really prioritizes impaired driving. We really look at behavior and changing the behavior of people before they even get in collisions. We get reports from enforcement, and we also do reporting on fatalities, injuries, and we really just want to spread the message that impaired driving is just never an option. Saskatchewan is quite small, so really impaired driving will touch someone in our province probably sometime in their lifetime, just because of the issue we have here.
So why did SGI actually join the IDCC?
So we have actually a really great relationship with TURF, with Robin and Karen over there. And we decided to join it after being successful working on distracted driving. However, it's just a great opportunity for us to be able to talk to different jurisdictions, see what other people are doing. Safety really isn't a one-size-fits-all. So it's great to get that different feedback from a different group of people, bring that back into our province and try to implement some things.
No, that's great. And I think it's a good reason. We're glad that you're part of it. Now, the IDCC has an action plan that covers prevention, education, data, and technology. Which is the most important one for SGI?
For SGI, I think all of them are very important. There's lots of great things on the awareness and education piece when it comes to youth and just being a little bit more nimble with those types of things. But where we really have our focus on is the technology side of that, whether that's helping our enforcement folks roadside with technology, and also looking at the education side of things using technology. So one of the things we talk about is mapping. And we've worked very closely with MAD here in Saskatchewan. And we actually have a map where you can see the different impaired charges that happen in the different cities at all different times of day. And it's really eye-opening and shocking without being too shock and awe or gory or anything like that. So, yeah.
Well, I've seen that map at a presentation you did, and it's very impressive work that you do. Now, there are many myths surrounding impaired driving, and with that, if you had to pick just one, I'm giving you the tough work here. If you had to pick just one, which one would you want to clarify or correct?
I think probably a big one is sleep doesn't always mean sober. So just because you've had a sleep doesn't mean when you wake up that you're sober enough to drive. So really thinking about when you wake up the next day, are you able to drive your vehicle if it's early in the morning? Yeah, that's probably the biggest myth for me to bust.
Yeah, and that one is easy to bust because I've arrested people the next day who thought they were fine, and they weren't so fine.
Yeah.
Ariel, thank you so much for spending time with me. This has been awesome, and I look forward to speaking to you again in the future.
Great.
I'm now joined by Robert Ghiz. He is the president and CEO of the Canadian Wireless Telecommunications Association. And welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sean. Great to be here today.
I call it a show, and it's not really a show because this is something we're doing very specifically in relation to the IDCC. We're talking about impaired driving and how it affects everything that happens on the road. So thank you again for joining me. How does impaired driving impact your organization, and why is it a priority for you?
Yeah, so we equate impaired driving along with distracted driving, and we think that from our aspect of things at the CWTA, We know that education is a key issue. Over the last number of years, we've been very happy to be able to join TURF through its Impaired Driving Coalition of Canada. And you guys are doing great work, and we're just happy to be able to hopefully provide a little bit of support.
Well, it's amazing. We're so glad to have you part of it. Now, the IDCC action plan has many components. Is there one that stands out to you as the most important from where you're sitting?
Well, you know, for us, it's all about I think the research and the evidence-based research that you guys use. You know, you're not just out there saying things without doing the research and the work to make sure that you're able to make a difference. And the coalition focuses on trying to learn from really what's already been done, good and bad, in the past, to be able to, you know, encourage safer driving in the future. And we believe that TURF and the coalition's approach is a realistic one, and that you don't really, you know, have the belief that there's a magic wand that's going to solve this overnight. It's about education. It's about bringing people together. It's about learning. And really, it's about finding a way so that people that are driving have a better knowledge of the risks associated through impaired driving and distracted driving to be able to make things even better. And just the awareness of a campaign like this and what we're doing today, you know, it makes me realize, even when I get in the car and I'm trying to talk to my kids or do something like that, you know, you got to remain focused. And especially as we get into these winter months when we know that it's even more dangerous behind the wheel.
Thank you again. And this has been Robert Ghiz from the CWTA. Joining me now is Jodi Rumble. She's the General Manager of Diageo Canada. And welcome. Thanks for taking the time to chat. I wanted to ask you a couple of quick questions. And the first one being, why is the impaired driving issue so important to Diageo?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And to answer that question, you know, drinking and driving and other risk-taking behaviors have recently increased in Canada. And we at Diageo believe it's important to increase public awareness and help drivers recognize the risks associated with impaired driving. For decades, Diageo has been very involved with combating harmful drinking across the globe. Also, our work to reduce harmful drinking is core to our 2030 ESG strategy. And we're clear that issues around impaired driving should be paid a special attention.
Now, the IDCC, or the Impaired Driving Coalition of Canada, Diageo's involved. Why is this an important move, or why do you support the initiative?
Well, we believe achieving this goal requires public and private collective efforts. We understand that attitude change is crucial in preventing impaired driving. Across the globe, Diageo has been addressing impaired driving through a range of interventions, working with police, local authorities, and other agencies to support enforcement of driving laws. I'm certain that our collective commitment under the Impaired Driving Coalition towards promoting road safety in Canada will yield great success.
Now, we have an action plan. Which one do you think is the most important one to your organization?
Wow, that could be a tough one. There are many. We're proud to join forces with this group across a cross-sector of organizations because it further educates people about the risks of impaired driving in Canada. Partnerships like this make us stronger and are essential to reach a much broader community to save lives. The work of the coalition combines knowledge and expertise with kind of an innovative approach. We're continuing this action plan through our educational resources, such as our Drink IQ platform, which offers information about alcohol and its effects, and the Wrong Side of the Road program, an interactive learning experience that helps people reflect on their decisions and the consequences of impaired driving.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for spending time with me today and chatting about these three things. But there's so much work that we're going to be doing together, so I look forward to it.
I really look forward to it as well. Thanks for having me.
I'm now joined by Michael Stewart. He's a community relations consultant for CAA. And Michael, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks for having me.
It's always a pleasure. We've had a chance to work together before and chat, and we get to continue the conversation talking about important stuff. So we're specifically talking about the IDCC, and I want to know, how does impaired driving impact your organization, and why is it a priority for the CAA?
So as an organization whose main focus is moving people safely, impaired driving is a big concern for us. Driving under the influence of cannabis or alcohol is dangerous, comes with serious consequences, puts yourself and others at risk, and what's more is it can be easily prevented.
Now, the IDCC has an action plan that has many components, but which one is the most important to you? Which one stands out?
For CAA, a major component that really sticks out for us is that education piece. Being such a key pillar for the Impaired Driving Coalition of Canada is essential.
I'm all about education. It's my number one too. Now, on that theme, there's a lot of myths related to impaired driving, operation under drugs and alcohol. If you had to pick one to introduce the facts to correct, I mean, there's a lot, but if you had to pick one, what would you focus on?
I think a big myth I would want to focus on, and that people should be aware of, is we hear from time to time of folks saying, oh, it's fine, I don't live that far away, or I know that route, so it's fine, I'll be safe. But we know that 45% of impaired driving collisions do happen near the home, and in fact, when you are driving that familiar route, you're less attentive than you would be on a new route. It becomes a muscle memory for us. We all have those routes we take day in and day out, so we kind of know them like the back of our hand. So we really want to raise awareness on that myth that it doesn't matter how far from home you're going to be, making sure you have a plan for a safe ride home, and making sure you're keeping yourself and others safe.
I think that's a great choice. It's certainly one that we see repeated all the time. People go into that autopilot mode, and if your autopilot is impaired, you got a problem. Michael, thank you so much for spending time with me. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like more information about the IDCC, follow the link in the description because there's lots of information to share.